Pan? Please inform the captain that I'll send her the engineering crew's updated psychological profiles by the end of the day cycle. Thank you. Ah, Gunnery Chief. Thank you for coming. Please sit down. I'm sorry for scheduling our appointment so close to the start of your shift, but the captain insisted all crew undergo their psych evaluations before we leave Thorak's orbit. You understand. Now tell me, did you enjoy your shore leave? No. Well, that's unusual. Most of our colleagues couldn't wait for the chance to visit the infamous Spirit Planet. I can understand the appeal, of course. An entire ecosystem inhabited by creatures capable of separating their, souls from their physical bodies is certainly an intriguing concept. Soul, of course, would be the more esoteric term, the most commonly used, but in fact, Thorakans have the ability to project the entirety of their nervous system onto others, and in doing so, they share emotions, feelings, and thoughts at a level we can only theorize about. But you didn't come here for a lesson in xenobiology, so back on topic. Why didn't you enjoy your shore leave? I see. Well, I can understand that. Some things should remain private, I agree. And Thorakian culture doesn't really understand our need for privacy. In that sense, humans are very lucky. Very lucky indeed. We can hide in the privacy of our own innermost thoughts and keep our secrets to ourselves. Of course, to the Thorakians, that would be akin to, I don't know, streaking in church, I guess. Something incredibly rude and a sign of deeply rooted issues to boot. I must say, I'm intrigued, Chief. Most women would jump at the chance to avail themselves of the famous Thorakians' pleasure temples, where every desire is attended to even before you can vocalize, or even acknowledge it. They would revel in meeting someone that not only can't hide anything from them, but simply doesn't see the point in doing so. Complete openness. Absolute acceptance. Humans strive for connection, for understanding, for the absence of secrecy in others. We think other people's secrets are inherently harmful, if not to our bodies, to our egos. You, on the other hand, cherish secrecy. Weren't you even a tiny bit curious about Thorakian lovemaking? This would have been your first time on the planet, after all. And why do you think that is? As I said, I'm intrigued, Chief. Take your time. Think about it. While you do that, I'll brew us some tea. I know. Coffee would be 10 times better, but we ought to follow protocol, you understand? Yes, Captain's orders. And we both know better than to disobey her. Now, here you go. Careful. It's hot. So, as we were saying... Sorry, what? I didn't quite hear you. Ah, yes, you're right. I didn't leave the ship myself this time. Well, I'm afraid that I couldn't have even if I wanted to. By protocol, the chief psychiatrist can't leave the ship. When doing so would compromise him, and consequently, the safety of the crew as a whole. Why would going on shore leave compromise me? Well, you see, while it's true that Thorakians have little to no desire to leave their planet, some of them find the way other species are capable of hiding their thoughts extremely appealing. Why, we've got records of Thorakians basically overwriting humans' psyches with their own, in order to become stowaways on Alliance ships and start new lives elsewhere, free of the bonds of forced sincerity. Of course, since the human they overwrite is, for all intents and purposes, gone forever, that's akin to murder. And the Alliance brass doesn't look kindly on the loss of perfectly good personnel. That's why we're having tea right now. Our tea is the only thing that can poison a Thorakian. So even if we were some stowaways on board, hidden in the bodies of our friends and colleagues, a single sip of good old Earl Grey would fix the problem for good. If I sound disapproving, it's because I am. I don't condone murder on either side of the fence, but I can understand the Thorakian's willingness to resort to it, as extreme as it may seem. Imagine, if you will, living your entire life without the luxury of your own thoughts, of your own emotions being entirely yours. You are forced to share, expected to share yourself, your heart, your mind, your deepest, darkest self with the world at large. No escape, no refuge at all, lest you'd be branded a deviant by your own species, a criminal without a crime, a sinner without sin. Why don't they share? What are they hiding? Why are they hiding? For a species that prides itself on its openness, Thorakians can be so spiteful, so judgmental of their own. I don't know about you, but that sounds like the closest thing to hell to me. Who wouldn't want to escape that by any means necessary? Thank you. It's my job to know all there is to know about other species' cultural and medical landscapes. If I didn't, these post-contact therapy sessions wouldn't be of any use at all. Quite the opposite, in fact. If I wasn't able to sniff out a Thorakian among my patients, I would lose much more than my medical license. You haven't touched your tea, ma'am. I haven't either, it's true. Well, you see, you're my 13th patient today. If I drank tea for every appointment I've had, I'd be puking all over the floor by now. Do I think you're hiding something? Well, of course you are. And that's perfectly fine. Healthy, even. Yes. This is your first tour with us, if I'm not mistaken. Ah, yes, there we are. Before the Halcyon, you were stationed on Mars. Lovely planet, if a bit claustrophobic. Perfect for training, what with its harsh weather and deadly sandstorms. You were stationed there under Commander... Ah, yes. Commander Williams. I remember stumbling upon his psychological profile while examining your own. A sadist, and an efficient one at that. One the Alliance made good use of until he died in less than clear circumstances. You were with him when he died, if I'm not mistaken. You and your squad were caught in a sandstorm, and Williams gave you the order to abandon your crew so as to not slow you both down. You were his rover's pilot, and that's probably the only reason why you survived while your comrades, well, they didn't. You found a cave, and things seemed to be looking up. Until, of course, William split his skull open on a rock. He stumbled, if I remember the official report right. He was too weak, dehydrated, and disoriented. Many accused you of taking advantage of his weakened state to hit him with that rock, but of course, what happens on Mars stays on Mars, and the Alliance was never able to prove anything. They just relocated you, and that was that. If you had been born a Thorakian, of course, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Any murderous intent is severely punished on Thorak, even before any crime is committed. Anything for harmony. Anything to keep the conformed safe and the struggling cold. Drink your tea, ma'am. Oh. Me first, huh? A little sip wouldn't hurt, you say? Well, all right. That will help you open up a bit more. But if I get sick all over your trousers, don't blame me, yes? No? No. I don't think so. Even if I drank my tea and nothing happened, I would have only indulged in your paranoia, and that would be extremely counterproductive to your treatment. Because you are paranoid, Chief. You've been from the moment you walked through that door. I can tell. It's my job to be able to tell. Why is that? What are you paranoid about? My tick. I've never had one before. Ah, that's right. You've never heard it before. I usually try to keep it in check with medication, but I've had so many patients today that I completely forgot to take it. I understand ticks are the way human brains try to signal they've been hijacked by Thorakians. But if you'd read my medical file, you'd see I've always had one. Of course, anyone could have tampered with medical files, especially one in my position, but I assure you, Chief, this is not the case. Anything else on your mind? You've checked my private quarters security footage. And why would you do that? You noticed someone used my authorization code to open the hangar door while everyone else was on shore leave, and found it suspicious. Well, that couldn't have been me, I'm afraid. That would have been an absolutely idiotic thing to do. To use my own security code to bring a Thorakian on board. Because that's what you're accusing me of, isn't it? To have disregarded all protocol and allowed a potential lethal threat on board for what, exactly? Ah, of course. Pleasure. So your theory is that I was so pent up after months without any kind of satisfying relief that I would have compromised my position and my personal safety to have fun with a Thorakian sex worker? No. That would have been absolutely reckless of me. Let's assume, for argument's sake, that you're right. I agreed to let a Thorakian on the ship. But for what? Fleeting carnal pleasure? Now, that's offensive to my intelligence, ma'am. Shows how much you know about me, really. The only reason I would ever even entertain such a notion is because the mind has its limits. Hidden in our cranium, limited by our imperfect biology. I'm a psychiatrist, Chief. The mind is my playground. And yet, to humans, it's only ever just the sandbox where children play their fruitless games, limited by their age and mental capacity. What if you could expand on that? What if the sandbox erupted, leaving an entire playground to play in? No limitations, no rules, no corner unexplored. That's what the Thorakian mind sees. What the Thorakian mind plays with all the time. Everything, anything, all at once. Who wouldn't be tempted by such a promise? By such limitless potential? Still, for argument's sake, let's assume I found a way to expand my mind by forging an agreement with a Thorakian. A Thorakian, oh so very different from the entirety of their species, because they can't feel. Since they were born, their feelings have been numb, absent, to the point that their community would have executed them in their infancy, had their parents not intervened. They taught them how to mimic emotion, how to appear normal so others would leave them alone. But such a performance is never ending in an environment that doesn't allow for any personal space. And so the Thorakian, exhausted, decided to leave before their peers discovered their fascination with violence, with pain, with sorrow. Let's assume they contacted me, offering a unique opportunity. I would provide my body, and considering the evident psychopathy of the alien in question, I would retain part of my psyche, filling the gaps with emotion where the Thorakian's distorted mind was lacking. We'd be 2 in 1, and I'd be limitless. Let's assume the Thorakian lied, took advantage of my eagerness in order to overwrite me completely, without remorse. A remorse they couldn't feel from the beginning, mind you, But then again, let's assume I was too excited to consider that. Let's assume you're now standing in the presence of a full, murderous Thorian. One that's clever enough to delete the security footage from the doctor's quarters, but not enough to make sure that any trace of their coming on board may be noticed. Let's assume this is all true, and not a trick of your traumatized, bloodied mind. What now? You enjoyed it, didn't you? Crushing William's skull, putting an end to his wretched life. Was the blood warm on your face? Did you taste it? I bet you did. He had it coming. He beat you, crushed you, humiliated you. Him leaving your comrades to die was only an excuse. The catalyst that brought dark thoughts into reality. You've always thought of yourself not as a good person, but a decent one. Would a decent person kill a tyrant? Would a decent person enjoy it? You tell me, ma'am. You haven't told anyone about your suspicions, have you? Why is that? I'll tell you why. Because you hoped they were right. You hoped to come to our session today and not to find a doctor drunk on hubris, but a kindred spirit. A murderer. A survivor. A dirty little secret. Someone who understands. Someone who approves. Eagerly. And now? Now what will you do? Stay with me, Chief. Play with me. Come to my playground. I have such sights to show you.